Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. The title is The Touch of Flight of the Multidimensional Mind. And so I want to speak about a sort of experience and a sort of, I guess, behavioral engagement with a certain state of mind or state of awareness. There's this sort of unique information where the man who, I think it was Neil Armstrong's father, I don't know who it was, the guy who stepped on the moon, Lance Armstrong, the guy who stepped on the moon, his father in his childhood saw the Wright brothers. That means imagine in your childhood you see man make the plane enter flight, and then imagine by the time you're old you see mankind has landed on the moon. Like, that's an intense experience for a human being. So I always wondered that what was it that made human beings go towards the sky? That means if there were no birds ever in the world, there were no insects with wings, would man ever attempt flight, or how long in history will pass before he actually cares to move in the sky? That means if birds weren't there, how long would it take man to kind of get a sense of the idea of wings? Now, the cool thing is that what drew the Wright brothers, I think what inspired them, I'm going to read some quotes from them later on, but what inspired them, I find, was the experience, the untapped into experience of flight. Now, I say the touch of flight in the title, the touch of flight of the multidimensional mind. You know, that's a kind of saying, you know, it's like some people say the touch of flight. I've seen some people say the taste of flight. What that means is you experientially open to something that was of no conceptual relevance, and therefore the experience becomes the filter of the concepts rather than the conceptual static image of self defining you, you know? So I'm going to speak about piloting in a different context, because I am that guy in history who pretty much saw the archetype of the pilot and saw the only metaphor, the perfect metaphor for really how we're going to explore our unconscious. Pretty much we're going to pilot our attention through this plane of existence, and we are doing so now. We have to do it collectively as a species. So anyways, the Wright brothers, imagine they got to fly once, and they were like, oh my god, this experience was so cool that I gotta do it again, And it seems that people don't just notice the cool, they are drawn by it. They are drawn by the new. For me, the coolest thing ever was the newest thing always. The newest toy was the coolest, the newest action was the coolest, the newest idea as a kid just growing up. And then I realized it's novelty, and novelty is being received in different values by different people. And anyways, to continue, what I'm trying to say is simply that when a person gets access to a new perspective, a new experiential perspective, that means they experience something new. In some sense, they cannot be held back by the past. You go roaring in the streets of humanity, better ways of living, it happens. We cannot avoid an advanced civilization. It is coming. It is coming soon, whether we like it or not, whether we are ready to see it or not, whether we are ready to live in it or not. Technology is not slowing down, only the users of technology are slowing down, and they have slowed down because they see the wrong humanity in the mirror. And what is the right humanity to see? It is a humanity that never stopped progressing. It is the access to speed ad infinitum. We want to accelerate the civilization and to see what its efficiency looks like without forgetting the nature prior to the technological innovation. So anyways, the Wright brothers found a way to fly. Their eyes experienced the air, three-dimensional space, in ways where you would say a caterpillar would feel after metamorphosis. So I feel what the Wright brothers did was the flight, the concept of flight is metamorphosis. The caterpillar is in some sense a two-dimensional realm. It cannot access the three-dimensional. It goes through a metamorphosis and it accesses the three-dimensional. The Wright brothers found a way to access the sky. And so what that means is the moment one person felt the sky, that experience of the new was the hunter-gathering of the inner realms. That the Wright brothers in some sense allowed humanity to experience what never before could have. That is the joy of living. That is the joy of continuity. So, Mr. Within, for whoever's listening, whoever's ears have found this video, I feel as a human being, you can't claim the inner realms too boldly, really, because they're evocational. But I have a certain familiarity and acquaintance with piloting, strangely, my moment before the content in my moment. And so this is, in some sense, a state of mind where right now, when you walk in the street, you see people, and you don't see their inner realms. But there will come a time where no one will be a stranger to the world they have extended from. Right now, it's a funny time. We have blindfolds on our eye, we have boxes on our head, and we think we see the world. It is cute. Right now, 2020, consciousness is cute. It is, but it is not strong. It is not visionary. It has not realized the value of the legends of history. And so the ultimate question comes, if the human being is here, why? Why should evolution happen? Why should you move forth? Why should, in this vast emptiness on a rock in the middle of space, why should we accept a sort of linear meaning? And it's not that we shouldn't, it's just that man has reached a point where it's not just an evolution of his physical existence, it is also an evolution of his psychological experience. And so the behavior of the environment, as it becomes conscious of itself, learns to abide. So we have to realize that our minds give us an access not only to notice the world, but to rhythmically expand through it, grow through the dimensions of the world. This concept might be strange to some because most people tend to own their moment as a thought. They think a thought is there behind their eyes. They think they are a concept that is just living in neuron will. I am telling you, the brain is a strange antenna of its own joy. It gravitates to what is important to it only to see that it has placed the seeds in the fields that it harvests. So imagine one day, Carl Jung was thinking about the conscious and the unconscious, and one day the unconscious came to talk to him. And he's like, what? And the unconscious, imagine, I'm saying this story playfully, guys, but I think it has value. Um, the unconscious comes to Carl Jung, imagine, and it says, hey, Carl. And Carl Jung's like, what's up, unconscious mind? Or Carl Jung would probably be like, how am I hearing you right now, unconscious mind? But it would be a situation where the unconscious comes to Carl Jung and says, O general of mankind, you who have pointed to the future generations to make the unconscious conscious, or it will direct their life. You who have called man forth towards the ultimate attention, what have you pulled them towards? And Carl Jung and every philosopher and every person who has said what if ever, they have attempted for novelty's blessing in the destiny of chaos and order's dance. And that is the power of the mind. That it can not only exist through time, it can realize it put it there. And that the world was a much more silent, still, and meaningless place before we began moving in ways of culturally crystallized sophistication. Right now, when I look at myself, do you know what I see? I see a creature. I see a creature in the world. But when the creature looks at itself, it only sees the world. When the world looks at the creature, it only sees the world. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm saying we are the hallucination of Earth, which is the miracle of choice. That means if you look at it from an objective cause, that means you're saying the cause of my mind is from an objective condition, then you can never go beyond that objective condition. You have identified with a piece of land you're not willing to step beyond. I am telling you, don't think structures are only in front of your eyes. There's so many structures. The inner realms are filled with skyscrapers that never end. When I give these talks, there's this strange feeling I get. Usually in any moment I do anything, I get this strange feeling. I get a feeling that this moment is an occurrence. It's a participation. So you see certain moments in my life, I go into the moment and I'm like, am I meant to be the wind wind between the branches, or am I meant to be the branches? And certain moments, there was a time, you guys don't know, like from 2014 to 16, when I started giving these talks, I was I was aware of the other tenant in the room, as Terence McKenna says. So I was in some sense aware of the mover of my moment. And the mover of my moment is not a concept. And there are so many who fall into the pit of conception when they step into the unknown, because they can't let the unknown be unknown. They have to constantly put a shape, an image, and even though that's evolution and progress on one level, but from another, the unknown is its own world. There's this poet named Rumi, Jalaluddin Maulana Rumi. He says, you must work as hard as you work in the visible world, you must work in the invisible. And what that means is there is an intensity, just like how there is a sort of response to a condition in front of your eyes. Most people think there's nothing behind their eyes. They think it's this pitch black abyss where thoughts pop out. But if you really look at it, suddenly you will notice the landscape of your memory. So let me tell you what memory is, guys. Memory is like Tetris pieces, but in a three-dimensional landscape. So imagine three-dimensional Tetris pieces were falling down, but these weren't Tetris pieces. These were, in some sense, memories and experiences you're getting as a human being. Now, I want you to imagine you are having an aerial view and you're seeing from the sky. Imagine you're walking in the park and suddenly you see from the sky this giant Tetris piece fall. And you're like, oh my God, is God playing Tetris? And I'm saying that the mind is a landscape. That's why I call it an inner realm, because imagination is dishonoring the value of 4 billion years of evolution in that realm. And it's not that the inner realms are 4 billion years old. It's just that the inner realms are a state of, if they are a process, pretty much your mind makes you a process, your body makes you a particle in that river. You understand? So I am saying the moment I see myself, I'm an individual, I am in the river of history, and history is moving me, and who cares about my free will when the world is moving me? But when I look at my inner realms, I see my inner realms, the mind of the human being, it's like the universe was like, all right, eternity, I'll give you a private office. I'll give you an office space. And the eternal being was like, oh my God, the universe is going to give me office space. And this office space ended up being the human imagination. So every human being, treat your mind like it is not a throne room of desire, or in some sense, the ignorant humility. In some sense, you will, after some point, realize that you are an instrument and the world has the hands to play you. And what I mean by that is that not play you in deception, because deception is like there. You know what I mean? You know how many times I've been deceived in this life, not even by supernatural phenomena, by natural phenomena, but by like visible beings I've been deceived, not by invisible beings. So I wasn't too afraid of deception in the inner realms. I'm just telling you that there is a meaninglessness there. That means you who are wondering about imagination and beyond, you who are wondering about, you know, Solaris and beyond. When I say Solaris, Sularis, when you wonder about the soul and the beyond, you are in some sense going towards the new. And the new will not reveal its face unless there is space. Creativity will not find you unless there is space. But if there is space in your mind to care for the world that you will come to know if you trust and walk through the unknown. That means, do you know how many moments with language? I have been fighting language before I knew there were, in some sense, um, audiences in behind our eyes. You know, it was as if like, you see, it's not that just war is physical. What's hilarious is that the source of war is in the minds of men. It's in the minds of creatures. And pretty much when creatures get crowded in a space, they freak out. I mean, you look at animal psychology, you corner a canine and it starts growling. You know, the canine's like, what the fuck, these people are pushing me in a corner? You know, the canine gets violent. When nature gets pushed to a corner, it rebels. That's the animal instinct. The animal instinct is the guardian of its primal frequency. That means your animal instincts is how your body was crafted at a certain resonance. And so this body that was crafted as a resonance, it's like a vehicle. And if this vehicle goes over a certain speed, it stops identifying with itself as a pure body. So if somebody would say, Mr. Within, if there was a gate, if there was a hidden gate in this actual real world of ours, to higher dimensions, where would it be? What would it be? And Mr. Within would say it would be where attention holds the world and the breath holds the attention. The intersection of consciousness and air, and you don't know, guys, people don't know this, but every time you breathe, the antenna of your inner realms refreshes like the waves of an ocean hitting a beach, hitting stuff you've written on a beach. So we are not actually one kind of creature. Physically, we may appear so, but internally, we are oscillating between the unconscious and the conscious, the unknown and the known. So that means if you ask me who I am, I developed a system where I realized there is over 300 trillion combinations. 300 trillion combinations. Let me see the exact number I came with. Just hold on, guys. Okay, here, check this out. There are oh, sorry guys, that was a different thing. I remember it was a different thing I was saying. There's pretty much, okay, here's another way of saying it. There is 24 ways, there is 24 dimensions. There's 24 combinations of how consciousness exists on this earth. And the reason I say 24 is because there is an axis I've designed where I think any human being in anywhere of this conscious matrix, in anywhere in the world, it applies. It doesn't matter if you're a human being on Earth or you are a pilot from Andromeda. It's in some sense the poetry is endless. The images come and go. The universal memory has no beginning or end because it is a circle around the hollowness, around the emptiness that holds the vastness of the mind. So the person is like, before asking, it's like, imagine the person asks the question, is there a God or not? Now, let's say the person says yes, and then the next question they ask is, where is God standing? And you discover the void of all voids. And then you discover the fullness of all fullness. And then you realize that the simulation is an oscillation in itself, and human beings are going to realize, as if, imagine one day the cells in your blood, in your veins, the blood cells in your veins, suddenly became conscious, developed technology, language, mathematics, and wanted to see who you are. And imagine the cells in your body somehow, with their advanced technology, managed to get out of the skin and in some sense see you from outside the body, only to realize the moment the cells go outside the body, they die. So I am telling you, we are strangely part of the body of what appears to not just be a human organism, but for now, we can say a planetary organism. So those 24 combinations are a suggestion of the simple self, the simple, the complex, and in some sense, the known and the unknown. That means there is a known self in a known world. There is a known self in an unknown world. There's an unknown self in a known world. There's an unknown self in an unknown world. There's an unknown world and a known self. Do you know what I mean? The options are endless. That's the kind of model I designed, where I realize if in every moment of my life I wonder about it, I would see that there would be a percentage of it that would be known, a percentage of it that would be unknown, and whatever event or incident I experience in this life can be relatable in regards to, is it a simple event in accordance to my experience, or is it more of a complex event? Do you know what I mean? That means the moment you notice there is speed faster than you in the room, what wisdom goes into the passenger seat. That means it's like there is, in some sense, for the scholar, true scholarly mind, there's no such thing as foolishness, because the potential of the fool to change is always there. You see, it's strange, it's like, I was watching Joe Rogan and his podcast, and Joe Rogan in his podcast, it was strange. For a second, there was something where he was sharing something, and then he suddenly said, "I'm a dummy." He literally said that. He said, "I'm a dummy, I don't know anything." you know? And then I was like, this dude thinks he doesn't know. The whole species doesn't know anything. This dude thinks he doesn't know. This dude thinks he's a dummy because he doesn't know. Do you know that we are like flashlights? We are like spotlights where wherever our attention goes, reality comes in. That means you ask Joe Rogan about fighting, he's an expert. You ask him about, I don't know, neurological experiments, maybe he's not familiar. You see, you become conscious of what is familiar to you, really, what you can relate to some degree. Things that you can't relate to, I have this kind of hypothesis that you never see. That means if there's a person you don't care about or you don't know, you will go on living a whole day not noticing that they were there. Do you know what that means? That means that we see that in society. People are becoming cold to one another because they have forgotten the value of the warmth of civilization, the value of a decent enough civilization. We think we're just building the body of a civilization. No, we have to build the mind of a civilization. We have to, in some sense, be those human beings that if 10,000 years from now somehow there are our children's children, or their eyes are open, in some sense, they will look back and be like, oh my God, our ancestors were 10,000 years ahead of their time. You know, and so that's the vision, that you do not deny the authority you feel in your inner realms, in your outer realms, but you at the same time do not be blinded by your inner realms, that the outer realms have their own voice. That means after some point you realize you cannot judge an unknown world and you free yourself from the egoic, the archetypal mind. Because the archetypal mind occurs because the attention in the moment has an opinion. That means there's certain things I speak about where I keep them fixed. The idea doesn't need to evolve. But technically, everything I speak about can evolve, and in the future will evolve. So when you speak in a changing system, technically the speaker is changing with the system. Socrates said the only true knowledge is to know that you know nothing, and this guy knew a lot when he said that. And he meant that the more you know, the more you see you don't know. So for me, imagine person A and person B, a problem we find in the globe that soon it's like an aroma, it's like this bad smell that needs to go away from the species. And this smell is in some sense the smell of, for example, the isms, racism, people in some sense not realizing that the eyes behind the like behind people's eyes, they could, how can I tell you? It's like, I saw a commercial of this poverty-stricken kid in this third world country, and I got angry. There was like this wave of anger, but then there was this inevitable sorrow. And that sorrow was that people are like, oh, that poor kid doesn't have food to eat. I was like, oh my God, that poor kid could have been the next Einstein. How many geniuses have we let fall by not letting humanity pick them up? Guys, I'm going to share with you something that I've never shared before. And it is something where, even though most people are fans of my work, let me tell you, like, I'm writing this giant science fiction novel, but I've also started, like, I'm never doing one project at the same time. I'm doing a bunch of things every day for different things, you know. So ever since mankind realized he could multitask, progress became simultaneous in many directions. But anyways, I wanted to share this story of this character I had made, and it's this archetype of the thief. And so I was thinking about the thief, and I was thinking about like Robin Hood, the story, and I was thinking about Robin Hood on like a more deity level. And so I crafted this science fiction story where it's called The Ocean Thief. And I'm just going to share with you a little scene of it, but it's this long book and this incredible work I'm working on. It's like the sculpture every day with words I'm kind of creating. And the ocean thief, imagine this is what the scene begins. There's this girl in a cottage, okay? This girl in a cottage, it's strange. Everybody is asleep. Everybody in the town is oblivious. You know, there's this man who comes and stands beside, okay, here's the scene. There's this girl, young girl, like that wakes up in the middle of the night, and she is like this brave soul. She is like you see her. She's like a child, but she has the inner strength of like the gods or something. It's like, anyways, later on in the story, you realize this girl is an incarnation of a god, you know, and the gods have families in this story. So, anyways, there's this the story. This chapter is called The Ocean Thief, the novel. The chapter is the first time where this girl sees the ocean thief, and this girl is like this young girl in a cottage, and she comes outside and she sees this man, this strange man with a suit that seems out of like earth, you know, is there, and he throws this orb in the middle of a pond. The orb comes in the middle of a pond and starts, in some sense, I don't know how to tell you, imagine this small sphere this guy picks out of his pocket and throws. This small sphere goes on the pond, like imagine a lake or something, and all the water begins getting sucked into the thing. So this guy's called the ocean thief because later on in the story you realize he did something where he became like the archetype of the thief universally. So he ascended as the archetype of the thief. So he is, in the story, the ocean thief is actually the concept of, if thievery had a god, he would be the god of all thieves, right? So he is like pretty much the ascended. He's like this kind of like human being who in some sense ascended towards being this archetype of like in any dimension he goes, he's the ultimate thief. Like he's the archetype of the thief. Okay? Now, in this story, he's stealing oceans, and you later on realize it's because he in some sense had a debt with one of the gods. And there's this other narrative happening where there's this god who is, they call him the world breaker. Anytime like an apocalypse is about to happen, in some sense this god appears and he starts crying. So this god, this character starts appearing in before the world, and tears run down his eyes. And the story is that the tears of his eyes are all the oceans and waters of the world, of that like galactic sector being wiped out. So the thing is that they've this ocean thief had a debt, and the gods, the world breaker had arrived, and they had to keep the tears of the world breaker. They had to endlessly offer water, or the apocalypse would happen, pretty much. So this ocean thief has come to Earth and is like literally stealing all the water and going to another dimension to kind of handle his debt with the gods. But he's not, like, that was the kind of story that I had designed with the ocean thief. And so the scene is this little girl comes out, and this guy's just there, and he's throwing his orb, and suddenly, like, there's this AI kind of voice in his suit, and he says there's a little girl approaching. And the guy looks at it, and the little girl has this dialogue. It's like, what are you doing? You know? And then in some sense, the girl says, what are you doing? And he's like, nothing, go back. Something like that to the girl. He's like trying to avoid her or something. Like, and then she says, can you please not steal our pond? And this ocean thief at the end of the chapter leaves that pond there. And all the water of everywhere is kind of taken. Yeah. Anyways, the idea of the world breaker, the idea of the tears of the world before it transforms. The touch of flight. Imagine experiencing the touch of flight in your inner realms. Imagine closing your eyes and realizing your mind and your attention can move with the same instantaneous whim that you move your physical body. What if you realize that you were familiar with your world? There's two views. There's this, again, as I said, this known self and the unknown self. And what does that mean? That means you know yourself in this moment right now, and you also simultaneously don't know yourself in the moment. So what do you really know of yourself? So it's the flight of the conscious mind through attention prior to thought into the unconscious, where it will allow the unconscious to put the thought. When we allow the unconscious to put the thought, it's as if we are the spirit of language and we're letting the world use the alphabet. So when you become comfortable with your moment, it doesn't become more individual, it actually becomes collective. And it's like as if the person wondering, all right, let's say there's an invisible other. Then in theosophical societies and viewpoints, they kind of perceive it that way. That in a multidimensional view, let us entertain person A. Person A, or let's say entity A, is on Earth, and entity A feels it is speaking to entity B, which the entity A feels is a different dimension of on the same place where Earth is. Now imagine entity A is speaking to entity B, and entity B, in some sense, says, hey, entity A, what if there was infinite versions of me, and you could endlessly, to the end of time, your mind fathoming faces in the void? Imagine that higher dimensional being, they weren't giving teachings. I'm telling you, the greatest gurus don't give teachings. They are just looking to see who notices. When you fly in your inner realms, you're the sky moving the clouds. We have to start preparing as a civilization. Literally, I was surfing online, and I realized there's some people preparing for zombie apocalypses. Like realistically, I was like, whoa. And I was like, why don't we prepare for an advanced civilization instead of a zombie apocalypse? Why don't we look at every system ever built and wonder what else it can be? It's all about a species waking up to its multidimensional hood, and it's going to wake up to its multidimensional hood as a witness of all attributes. So that means there's a part of you right now as I'm speaking that the moment I say the word, you hear the sound waves, but simultaneously, if you're a person, it could potentially evoke imagery in your inner realms. So if there is imagery in your inner realms, there is a witness. That means you have witnessed yourself like a subject. So are you really the subject? You have witnessed the object, so are you really the object? And if the object and subject change, as your physical body does throughout the years, as your psychological constitution does throughout the years, in some sense, who is here? It's like, imagine they go and they're like, in modern liberal society, they're like, you can do whatever you want with your identity. And the person's like, I want to identify as this, and the other person's like, I want to identify as that, and the other person's like, I want to identify as a zombie, and then that one person's like, I want to identify as, a god, and somebody's like, I want to identify as, a temporary being, and I realize it is just costume games for the mind. When we move past that phase of human intellectual precision, we will go into where experience becomes the teacher. That teachers will just be trying to scout students to see where are the new views. The world has to care for its speed, or it'll never speed up. I remember I had this math teacher, bless him, his name was Mr.Within. I didn't think he really, I don't think he was fond of me, but but anyways, he would say this thing. He would sometimes say, he had said it to me once. He would tell me, you're going so slow, you would have to speed up to stop. And I was like, yo, is this guy roasting people right now? Let me tell you, it is so easy to build an empire behind your eyes. Those people who justify, oh, I was saying this, guys. Person A and person B. Person A has a relationship with the interdimensional being only to realize that he can have infinite interdimensional relationships with interdimensional beings. So at the end of any external activity, we realize the center of our attention is our inner realms. So your mind, you might not believe this, is gravitating your body towards whatever it sees. I feel our souls are spheres roaming this earth, and these spheres are actually, in some sense, we are simulations. We are simulations of advanced higher dimensional beings that are literally just geometrical shapes. This is a view. This is a, think of what I say, entertain my words as if they are an attempt to borrow Thor's hammer to crack the edge of the simulation, And when I say simulation, guys, I'm saying simulation in the sense that the sensory seems to be simulated by wakefulness and the energy and attention to do so. On some level, the human body is in such a fragile state that sometimes a simple breeze can change its velocity. But really, we have to know the eyes before we don't have them anymore. And I feel the banishment of imagination is the ignorance of many justifications of human response to our arbitrary phenomena. What that means is, you think out of 8 billion people are living on this planet, guys, you think these 8 billion people see the same planet? Do you think these 8 billion people see the same planet? Do you think when they look at it, they see the same value systems? Do you think they're even designed to see the same value systems? As far as I'm concerned, we could either see one human species or 8 billion species of human. Do you know? Do you see? We can either see all of us are ourselves as all of us are one common genetical design of manifestation, or we can choose to see each of ourselves as just the eyes of the earth. Do you know that means the eyes of earth in Japan see earth that way? The eyes of earth in, for example, Canada see the earth that way. I'm saying that, you see, of course, freedom is above all. That means whatever you do, you have to have freedom, or you'll never let your true intelligence arise. Let me tell you, fear, if people were disgusted by fear, they would never let it, in some sense, make their attention turbulent. There, you can always observe, and it's as if, here's the cool thing, guys. If you observe before you act, you watch the world before you have watched through yourself, and you move with rhythm. That means without observance, That means without you as a human being slowing down to look at things, you cannot get a sense of them. And the human creature goes into such habitual programs, cultural programs, social programs, national programs, endless ideological programs. It's like okay, how many apps do you want to have open in your mind? Ideological applications do you want to have open in your mind, human being? After some point, you will care to close down those applications, and you'll suddenly be like, "Oh my God, is it the case that when I realize my past is past and I'm just in the now, I don't have to worry about what has happened, but I can care and do something about what will happen." So that means those people who are suffering because of their past, how dare you? How have you dared? When the future is standing in front of you, you're suffering from your past? Really? The future was the evolution of the past, as far as I know. And that's what the pattern seems to be. So, anybody in this episode specifically, if anybody has a specific question from your own inner realms, like you have a question about your own inner realms, and you would like, I don't know, Mr. Within's commentary on how to pilot through the inner realms, I can share my feedback here. But keep in mind, I'm like one human being in a universe of billion trillion stars. But I'm just saying that I have a certain acquaintance. The inner realm is not a concept, for example. The inner realm doesn't have a body, for example. The inner realm, for example, doesn't appear to itself as a particle. It appears as the process of evocation. This is why man's mind till the end of time will seek revelation. But it will seek revelation in different terms. Because when you hold on to an ideological system before your current moment of time in history, you in some sense feel the world is changing. That means ever since they said there can be an apocalypse, there every moment seems to be a sign of the apocalypse. Because things change, and in change they destroy to be reborn. So it's like little did they say after the apocalypse there's going to be a new world. That this life doesn't, you can't have death and you can't have destruction and creation not there simultaneously. In the Vedic tradition there were three gods, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, if I remember correctly. And these were, in some sense, you can say Krishna is the Godhead, but these would be the God, the three parts of that Godhead. And it would be as if there is, like in Indian mythology and Vedic culture, it was such an incredible time. Because they would walk in the world and they would speak to the God of creation. They would speak to the God of destruction, and they would speak to the God that is the maintainer. Did you know there is a maintainer God? Named Vishnu, which I think 20,000 years ago I looked through eyes of a Vaishnava guy. But I'm telling you, like, we are not our eyes. Just like the scientist is not the telescope. So when you fly in your inner realms, you're not per se being a body. Like the best way you can fly through it is finding the familiarity of your life and realizing your mind, strangely, it's like every person has this advantage. Because there's so much randomity, the definition of order is that to bring a chaotic system outside of some sort of, like if when a system, let's say, has gone into chaos, or it appears, consciousness has appeared in chaos. What you do with that chaotic system, let's say you're a child in the future generations, let's say 120 years from now, you're a human being that's born, a child on this earth, and you open your eyes and you see chaos, chaos, chaos. Imagine we couldn't get the situation under control, and in 120 years we're seeing more intense strides towards extinction. And so at that point, that child will open its mind, and what would chaos appear to it? It appears to how a language you don't know appears to you. It appears not foreign, it appears random. Most people don't realize what they think is random they think is meaningless, but you sometimes have to put the effort into stabilize a view. You have to stabilize vision sometimes. Just like this bird is like stabilizing the fruit with its beak and then eating it. Like that's definitely too big. This bird has to eat the fruit without technically having the thing fall from the vine, or maybe it's impossible actually. This bird should eat fruit on the ground. What's it doing eating fruit in the air? Because it's gonna fall after the first bite. No, it doesn't have hands. Guys, we can train birds into eating food on the ground if it wasn't so hostile. Sorry guys, I went on a tangent. So guys, in the chat section, John says, "Hey, Mr.Within, I sincerely believe in guardian angels. I don't have proof for others to see, but I know they are with me. I feel them in my soul and we communicate subtly. Snow owls have appeared in my dreams." Hey man, just out of curiosity, John, do you have a scar on your forehead? I'm joking. Here's an idea, guys. Do you want to hear in the chat section? If 3 people want to hear it, then I'll share the story. Okay. There was a time where I would entertain the notion, a sort of more. I had more of an archaic personality, and so I have an experience with the idea of guardian angels. So, if 3 people want me to share this story, I'll consider that like a worthy audience, and I'll share. You know. So guys, the concept of guardian angels, I don't know, like there's been times where I've approached it, John, in a way where it's like I've seen it as my future self, which is this collective being that's attributeless. So I would say that my relationship from the story I wanted to share was my first time I cared for the idea of guardian angels and how I approached it, like realistically, like what my intent was. But, I would say it like this for now. Maybe the story's not for, I should have shared it now, but I'll tell you this. Imagine your mind knew what was going to happen before it happened. And imagine that mind was intelligent. So in some sense, it's like your voice communicating to your ears. It's like it's strangely the evolution of the insanity of self-talk to the recognition that thinking was that. On some level, people are saying, think for yourself, think. But on another level, if the person gets caught too much in their inner realms, we're like, yo, man, this sheep is going away from where the herd is going. And what if the herd is going into a slaughterhouse? We have to evolve and advance. I would say that I have had moments where, when I was younger, it felt like guardian angels. Then what that intelligence told me, literally so directly, that in some sense don't see a face. it's like I mean, you know what it is? It's like you feel you're in communication with something, like as Terence McKenna says, the other tenant in the room of this earth. And so I was like, I felt like there was something there, and then I felt there was something there, but that thing there was like, it's like, I'm like, show your face, and it's like, I don't got a face. And it's this sort of multidimensionality where you realize really it doesn't have a face, it's a field. Higher dimensional intelligence is like a field moving particles. Lower dimensional intelligence is a particle moving in a field where it thinks there's endless particles in the field. You know? Alright guys, I'll be the third person. Alright, I'll show you the story, you know? Okay, somehow we street smarted our way into intuitive authorization, guys. Anyways, what the idea is that the first, so guys, I'm sharing this story not per se as a part of the talk, but as like this parallel dimension where I'm just responding to the chat section. Okay? An advanced listener notices the various canvases where the voice is writing on, you know? So anyways, I'm going to share with you just very simply my experience in 2013. Before these talks, before I even had started writing, really. Before I started, guys, before, not before I had written. I'm not, no. 2000, after 2011, something happened that there was some mystery that entered my experience that I couldn't let it go. And so I found ways where through writing and speech, it was as if I was getting feedback of what is the mind doing in the moment, you know? Like, so there was this mystery for me. I remember I had many external desires. I was like, pretty much, you guys might not believe it, but the world has pulled me, turned me around from a bunch of dead ends, you know? Not dead ends, literally moments where I felt the karma of the moment, like the soul of the moment was like, what are you doing here? I wanted to go into investment banking or something in finance advisory. But anyways, life took my attention to my inner realms, and anyways, so in 2013, I remember I had this vision where I felt I felt like there was something, there was a presence around me. Okay, so here's the story, guys. On this website, it's hilarious, but on this website, I remember reading this forum. I don't know what the forum was. I can't even remember. Like, I just remember the idea. This person had said, if you want to speak to your guardian angels, you in some sense go and sit still and say, just a second, guys. I gotta lower the volume of the song. Alright, guys, back to the story. Pretty much in this forum, this guy had said, you go find yourself in an honest and sincere moment, a moment you can trust, and then you just really sincerely in that moment say, I am ready, I am now ready to see my guardian angels. Okay, that was, this website was like, do that, man. You know, and I was like, all right. You know, like the idea came. And then there was one moment where I was alone, sitting at home, and I was at this dinner table, and in some sense, I was sitting at the dinner table, and once, imagine like a rectangle, I was sitting at one side, like, you know, how like royalty would eat dinner back in the day, both two sides of the room. And I remember I said this, and it was for the first time. For me, I don't see faces or images. Not images. I don't see like for me, the concept of a being goes beyond personality, so I don't necessarily attach myself to any narrative of what a being's story is beyond my eyes. But I'm saying this, that I pretty much say that sincerely. I just find what that moment to be intuitive, and I just say it, and I feel these three giant. It felt as if like three, um, maybe like 3 4 meter beings, like maybe these three, like I felt this presence of this trio, and I can't tell you how much throughout my life there has been this pattern of the three, as if like if there was a multidimensional kind of collaboration between three beings, it would be like this kind of field, you know. So there has been states of mind where I've perceived myself as simultaneously as three different dimensional beings. Okay, I'm telling you, that thing that I thought in that moment was my guardian angels. Like I felt a presence. I literally felt like as if three giant statues suddenly, like fell into the room. It felt like that. Like my inner realms. I was noticing how after saying that sentence, my psychology was receiving the moment as if the inner realms reality was now echoing in the outer realms. So, and that time, after that, I realized the vision, the face of the higher dimensional beings. You see your higher dimensional face not in one moment. You see it in the pattern of your life. Then you realize you have. I realized that those three beings that for some time I was treating as if they were like my guardian angels. I suddenly realized they were not the guardian angels. They were 3 dimensions, 3 worlds intersecting. So right now, we are not our names and our personalities. We are the interaction of 3 dimensions of being. A dimension where phenomena eternally is created, a dimension where phenomena is endlessly destroyed, and a dimension where phenomena, as long as it's there, it's endlessly maintained. That means if your mind finds the maintainer, you in some sense technically can physically live an immortal karma. That means your body, whatever happens to it, its mind, your mind is like, you're kind of allowed to linger more longer in this airport before your flight out of conception. Multidimensionality is like an airport, guys. We shouldn't forget this. So that was the story pretty much I wanted to share, that I went and said that. I felt that presence of those three, and then I realized before I was feeling what that phenomena is my guardian angels, my mind was being my whole moment. There's something about yoga that makes you not be too interested into higher dimensional beings. You see, there's a saying they say, in the Vedic view, that the sadhu, the truth seeker, when he seeks truth, he will inevitably attain, and when he inevitably attains, he in some sense he gets abilities and powers. But if the mystic doesn't use, in some sense misuses these powers, he is trapped in the illusion of the world. That means if you really give into a desire, have you noticed it makes you forget your responsibility? Like you can literally have a desire, be like, oh yeah, and like imagine a surgeon doing surgery on a president, and then suddenly the surgeon's like, oh man, I desire Haagen-Dazs. And even the Haagen-Dazs CEO is like, bro, to complete the surgery, what the fuck, eat Haagen-Dazs later. And so you see the desire takes you out. The desire is an ejection out of the plane of existence. That means there will come a time where you feel maybe right now as a being, you don't have choice to be here, and you don't have a choice when it ends. But you will realize you have a choice to be here, and you also have a choice how it ends. You see, you have to realize every breath in your body, in your lungs, is how the stage curtains have been pulled and life is like, go, it's your time. That means it's like you don't have time to even develop. I'm telling you, that's the whole thing about battle. When there was war, do you know what that meant? Imagine in medieval times, you were a person in a kingdom. Let's say you were a scholar in a kingdom, you were a philosopher, you were a scientist, you were, let's say, a painter, whatever. You were just a member of a kingdom, and suddenly you were like, wait a minute, what is that in the distance? And you see it's a kingdom, this ruthless king from this other empire who wants to become the tyrant of the world. Do you know how many kings back in the day just wanted to rule everything? Now we are civilized where we can hold back a lot of our desires just to understand the situation better and then allow the efficient desires to arise. That means before even getting rid of your desires, first go through the efficient and inefficient axis. This is a lens of perception. That means you in this moment, you're like, okay, all right, you look at yourself in the moment and you're like, am I being efficient? Am I being inefficient? What does my most efficient self look like? What does my most inefficient self look like? Then you wonder, what does my most inefficient world look like? And what does my most efficient world look like? And me as a human being, because I was raised in the other side, where it was all inefficient world and inefficient self just constantly, I got bored. And then I was suddenly realized the value of us being is that now we can pilot. That means don't think this life as you won't feel this life as suffering when you want to build something here. You think the inventor cared about the room temperature when he was about to complete his masterpiece? So guys, that's what I wanted to share. It's a relationship with your inner realms, where in higher dimensions, all the relationships you see, it's like a two. Imagine the concept Carl Jung was relaying the story of the Flatlanders, and the Flatlanders is like imagining this two-dimensional plane. We have, in some sense, what do you call it? In this two-dimensional plane, imagine we have. Excuse me. Guys, I'm just saying, imagine a table, imagine two-dimensional beings were living on that table, triangles, squares, circles, or imagine like this, imagine a bunch of squares are living in a two-dimensional kind of world, okay? And suddenly they see in that two-dimensional reality another square appear out of nowhere. They go to that square and they say, yo man, how did you just teleport out of nowhere? And the square's like, I didn't teleport. I'm actually existent in 6 planes of existence simultaneously. So I would say for those two-dimensional flatlanders, the third dimension, like they couldn't see how a cube was set on the table. So imagine you have a cube and you put this cube in the flatlands and suddenly they're like, yo, giant cube appeared out of nowhere, giant square appeared out of nowhere. They only have access to two-dimensional perspectives, And so then we see it's a three-dimensional activity. So if the two-dimensional wanted to comprehend the three-dimensional, it would have to keep, in some sense, all the dimensions of the cube in a state. So it would technically mean, I need paper for this. It would technically mean, this is Mr. Within's kind of unique view on the Flatlanders. Flatlanders, these two-dimensional beings, they only have access to two-dimensional sight. Okay, now this two-dimensional being suddenly sees another square teleport appear out of nowhere. That two-dimensional being is like, what the fuck, how did this being appear out of nowhere? Is this a miracle? Is this supernatural? Is this da-da-da? Is this da-da-da? And that, we've kind of went down that rabbit hole. But at the same time, the being is like, let me see. And let's say the two-dimensional being that asks a two-dimensional question from this two-dimensional being, and this two-dimensional being says, bro, we're not two-dimensional beings, we're actually cubes, but you think you're a square. You think you are a flatlander. You believe you're a flatlander. We're actually cubes. So this square has realized it's a cube, so it has access to, in one moment, in each of its dimensions, has simultaneously access to, in some sense, what is it? 5 dimensions. You right now have, if you were a square in the flatlands, would simultaneously, as you're experiencing your life in the flatland, be having simultaneously 5 other parallel dimensions, planes that make up the square, make up the cube. Do you see what I mean? So I feel that our exploration into higher dimensions is actually, it requires such an open-mindedness towards multidimensionality, towards multiplicity of character, of psychology. That means, oh my God, is someone remembering their childhood, literally being, their mind is being now and also observing imagery from that moment, and the person has memories? What the fuck? You see, like the person can be a sense of self, but has access to various moments that they personalize as an expression, as an intelligence on this earth. So that's what I'm saying. When we now wonder about the greater dimensions of the psyche, which Carl Jung did, which all the great scholars of the world and philosophers did, the philosophers, let me tell you, they were the rebels, they were the protectors of the unknown. That means philosophers are the angels of the unknown. That means whenever society solidifies into a belief system, children will be born and they would say, why is this here? It's just it's built in our design to question what we perceive to repeat. It's built in our design. So John, I would say that the imagery of your inner realms, I treat my inner realms like a temple. That means when I wonder, when I really feel the inner realms, when I go really experiential, I mean, experience is happening all the time, but I'm saying when I concentrate on the inner realms, I am not a thought. You take your shoes off before you enter the temple because you're like, why should mud go into this space? Why should a certain, it's as if, here's the thing, religion is a pure multidimensional journey. That's why you go see the religious mindset, they're all trying to be pure souls in the eyes of God. In the eyes of God's will. That means, you know what happens when a kid does a backflip in let's say, for example, Canada, people go like, yo man, that was crazy, that was cray or something, you know? But when a person does it, when a kid does backflip in Iran, like if there were a bunch of like merchants looking at that, they would be like, mashallah, they would be like, look at what God's will is doing today. Do you see the difference? Do you see how many our inner realms are mysteries? Everybody's eyes are a hidden library, that it's their choice. That was something that, in some sense, it came to me, where the Logos whispered to me, where it was like every person behind their eyes has access to this library, but it's only up to them to share the library. So your inner realms, when you can treat it like a notebook, that's the healthiest thing. It's a notebook that not everybody needs to see. I mean, I'm incredibly talking about it, but I'm saying it's a notebook where when you trust life and move, it's win-win. When you don't trust life and move, it's win-lose, and either your ego loses or the world loses. Do you see what I mean? We must trust that in the future we have navigated well, and then we navigate. So imagine right now, let's say you are, what what should I say? Let's say you're a carpenter, okay? And let's say you've seen like a master carpenter. Okay, let's say you've seen a master statue maker. Okay, you've seen somebody make a statue. And guys, I think people who make giant statues should get paid a lot. I don't know why. I just feel like that's too cool of a contribution to not get paid a lot yet. Because if it was me, if I was the government of a nation, I would put giant statues of the most historic people in the nation, so people identify not with some abstract chunk of land with paint colored on it. We should identify with the value of what has happened on that part of the earth. Imagine we went to the guy in mind, and the guy was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Why do you guys have different colors in your face? Like the children of Gaia return to the world soul, and the world soul's like, yo, why do you guys have color in your face? And they're like, because we're all from different nations and tribes, And then the Gaia is like, are you kidding me? It's one earth. What tribe? What group? Oh, you made a group? Good job. It's one rock in the middle of nowhere. Good job. You cut it up. You cut the cake into pieces, and you felt that was sophistication of civilization. For me, guys, let me tell you, it's strange because on some level, I care for the earth as if it's like the eyes of a child, and then at the same time, I care for the earth as if it's this brutal place of transformation if your will doesn't engage it. That means Milarepa would say, one throws a stick at a lion once. That means one disturbs the plane of existence once, one touches a hot stove once and doesn't touch it again. Do you see? So in certain moments in life, it's not all that one belief system to rule them all. What is this, Lord of the Rings of belief systems human beings are doing? It's like, all right, let's see which one, who has the ring. And all of us are like, yo, we got to take this ring to Mount Mordor, And what is Mount Mordor? Mount Mordor is the inconceivable. The ring is how one idea is trying to rule all people's minds and shame, because the world is a more multidimensional place when we're not thoughts. So guys, it's the inner realm speak. It's like you're right now as I'm speaking, you're not like this emptiness. I'm not talking to emptiness right now. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're a being, you're an intelligence. Something is active enough to notice its own activity enough to notice that it's here. This sense of being here is the vitality of recognizing that your inner realms can be painted. Your inner realms are like an advanced AI technology in the future, where imagine you woke up from your bed, and at that point in the future, guys, that we won't have beds, it'd be anti-gravity. Like I was thinking, oh my God, what's the best kind of bed to buy? And the best kind of bed to buy is anti-gravity beds. That means you're literally hovering in the air. Your physical body is not being shaped by like a flat surface. You know what I mean? Guys, I'm telling you, if you're a billionaire, just, you can give a shout out to me later when you accomplish something, but like I'm telling you, if you're a billionaire, invest in anti-gravity technology. And because I am telling you, the real estate market in the future, guys, on a global level, will get transformed by which house has, not where the house is going to be valuable, which house has the most advanced technologies. So the technology is going to change the house. So imagine in the future you wake up and this AI says, good morning, what kind of room do you like? And you say, all right, I want my room to look like, how can I tell you? The 1980, not like, I don't know, like a Star Trek ship. And suddenly you see that room suddenly turn into something like the AI is so advanced, it just throws a hologram on your cheap empty room, and it suddenly you feel like you're in like a space ship or something, you know? That means I feel interior design should be out of this world, but the exterior design of the architecture of houses should be to relate to inside the world, you know? So, anyways, guys, I want to say a few more things about the title, and then I'm gonna open up Q&A or just basic dialogue. Um, if people have a question or whatever. So, the touch of flight for the multidimensional mind. Mr. Within is saying this. You're gonna live as a personality. You're gonna wake up tomorrow and you're gonna realize a different personality. Then you're gonna move in different environments, and you're gonna realize each environment has a sort of voice. Oh, guys, I know what this bird is doing. Sorry to kind of. This bird is probably inhaling the fruit. This bird is inhaling the fruit so it stands there. That's so smart. Guys, you can totally see like the beak of this bird is like a geometrical angle. You see this? The personality realizes as it changes every day, it's a presence. The presence realizes it's a field. The field wonders about its life purpose. It gets access to multidimensional view. It's the multidimensional mind opens. Once the multidimensional mind opens, then you are seeing everything in nothing and nothing in everything simultaneously. But you are seeing, or another way of speech, you are seeing the singular dimension and the infinite dimension are inseparable. When they are inseparable, you realize you can never, it's like it's strange. Evolution is evolving to a point where we couldn't just be an object to ourselves, we became a subject, a subjective rhythm of experience, river of consciousness. And then this objective uh, being evolved towards the subjective, and then from the subjective it's going to evolve into experiential rhythms. So pretty much here's the thing, this is the question: how does a creature evolve from a thought? And Mr. Within would say you become the world that's moving the thought. So just observe your mind until you see that how the world is being your whole moment. And then I don't know, maybe buy a notebook and start writing your inner realms. My inner realms are like I purify it with I clean my inner temple with stillness and silence often. And the stillness and silence has no motive. They're asking like, why are you sitting still in silence? Are you meditating, man? No, I'm just sitting, bro. Yeah. It's that kind of view, you know? It's simplicity allowed to breathe. Allow your simplicity to breathe, and you will observe the complexity, and you will update yourself automatically. It's your subconscious mind updates it better. So, anyways, guys, let me see what I write in the subtitle. Perspective, yeah. So when you realize there's an observer of thought, that observer of thought is not thought. And you realize, whoa, am I a thought? It's like they say, I think, therefore I am. No, something has to be, and then thoughts emerge, because life was silently happening before voices individualized. We are such a complex system that we can't let it go. It's like this evolution is this like like after 4 billion years, there's this science project, and our eyes are open inside it. It's like, I think the most interesting view to see reality is that the edge of the cosmos is like how we're still having a view of the spaceship from inside. Outside the spaceship, it could perhaps be beyond the language threshold, the term I've created, and it means literally beyond a view where experience can, where experience can't literally, there's no language for it, it's just raw experience. Your silence has a value, and its value is the space for your vision to emerge. I feel, okay guys, so John says, Mr. Within, have you heard of the law of one? Would that be where would that be we're little chunks of the same soul? Listen, I'm telling you, you're not a story. John, I'm telling you, you're not language. Language is a tool. It's an advanced technology. It's a vehicle for expression of individualism. But when you go look at the individual is only there because it's acknowledging its separation from the collective. Therefore, the subconscious mind is the collective. That's the hidden secret. That you have access to the mind of your species, but not just the mind of your species. Beyond patterns, it becomes just endurance of will. So after some point in your inner realms, there is no concept, there is no thought, you're left with your nature. Your true nature doesn't mean it's going to be happy, or it's going to be sad, or it's going to be what you expect. It is the freedom for the unknown. It would be as if living on a planet and realizing unknown. If your mind is unknown, how can you know the other dimensions? It's as if like the warrior first finding the weapon, then running into battle, not running into a battle of swords, wanting to punch people. Like, that's a bad strategy. You know, you have to update the will in accordance to its raw feeling, and it's as if importance. For me, there was something where I was like, what separated people who were great in history from all those who weren't? And I realized, like, even the Martin Luther Kings of the world, you know, the Gandhis of the world, the Elon Musks of the world, you know, I see Elon Musk as a kind of non-violent Gandhi in regards to how he brought forth electronic cars into the world. In the electronic car universe, Elon Musk is like Gandhi. He went the path of non-violence towards the industrial need to keep fuel around. What separated them was that they could notice what was important while they were alive. Most people have put what's important for them for their afterlife. That's something that I couldn't entertain. Like, the moment I could get out of that thought structure was a breath of fresh air. That for me, I realized we tolerate so many new ways the body moves, but we can't tolerate the way new ways the mind moves. We allow people to dance on stage in talent shows. What does that mean? That means that person has access to any being, any sort of physical movement in that three-dimensional space. Do you see? For me, there's a style of dance which I haven't seen happen yet, but I think it was really in martial arts. And it was, for example, in the Shaolin technique, it was a sort of spear monkey technique where this, imagine a Shaolin warrior in battle, and imagine you're facing a Shaolin warrior, and this Shaolin warrior jumps, literally climbs up his spear, jumps into the air at a high elevation, and then slams you with this spear, or whatever he has, his weapon, and from like 2 meters in the air, by climbing his own weapon into the air and slamming you with it. Like, it's this next level kind of martial art technique, right, in the Shaolin practice. And I was like, it's like in that moment, you're like, this guy climb his weapon right now? It's like when your opponent climbs his weapon, you know, you're like, all right, buddy, calm down. The point is that the person accessed the different elevation. It's the study of our eyes in a changing world. What else can I say? I would say that you're not a story. You're not language. Language, it's evoked through sound, and sometimes there's inner streams of it. Like you can hear a song in the morning on the radio, and then you be like in the evening in the middle of work, and you're like just suddenly feeling that rhythm. So, so I found speech and language to be like a satellite. Like I attempt to use language like a satellite, as if it's going to places where it hasn't been before, and it can bring back something. After a point, speech becomes like painting, guys. I'm not joking. And when you speak a lot, after a while, you don't think about the words anymore. Just like a writer who's been writing a lot doesn't think about how he's holding the pen. Now the idea moves the rhythm of the moment. Do you know how many times, guys, where literally my eyes, I was writing, I went on this like poetry frenzy, this poetic kind of mystical writing kind of vibe for some years, especially from 2011 onwards, 2012 onwards, somewhere around there. And what would happen is that I would pick up the pen and I would just close my eyes for a moment and just breathe and just be there in the moment. And inevitably, as I would wait in that preferencelessness, there would be an emotion that would arrive. That means wait for your mind and then move. And then you'll become conscious of how your mind is being the environment. That means, believe it or not, you gotta let your mind walk into the room first. That means in any physical situation in your life, give yourself the advantage of 4 billion years of evolution where now you can really observe the moment from different angles. You can observe an object from different angles, and you can observe now subjects from different angles. And inevitably, we will become the center of the circle, realizing that we're neither of the past or the future. We are, in some sense, the eyes that saw them both, that were them both. It's like we're all kind of archaeologists, but we're not finding like artifacts or ancient objects. We're wondering about how subjects have had a will and an effort and a design to go forth. It's kind of mind-boggling when you really look at how much communication human beings have done throughout history. When you look at history, your shyness literally goes away. You're like, wait a minute, you're telling me all these people freely spoke? And you realize, yes, because that's what you do on a rock in the middle of nowhere. You spark language as a fire for the inner realms to live on. Just live and survive. So anyways, guys, that's the end of the talk for now. If anybody has a question, I'm going to open it up to Q&A. Kind of my sleeping's been off lately. You can say the personified relationship of man with an unknown mind has resulted into the conclusion of an unknown world. As long as human beings consider an unknown world, there will be more to see. So that means you are actually, we think the world doesn't have advanced technologies right now. You may think that the world is a certain way, but let me tell you, the designs are everywhere. This world communicates as design. You see, after a point, it's no longer the personality's desire, it becomes the intention of your soul. That the intention of your soul is from a free will position where it starts off as free. So that means when you enter a room, you are entering the room. But when you enter the room and you realize you can't get out, for example, then you realize it was your choice. But now it is not your choice. So a human being can be in states of free will, and they can also experience in their inner realms states where they are not free, where they are not free of their own will. So I'm telling you, it's very important that whoever who is interested ever in this life to wonder about the unconscious, to wonder about the mind, to wonder about the grandest exploration behind our eyes. So, guys, Kaylee says, if I may share, I was religiously Christian until a few years ago. Then I moved into oneness with a mentor who solely focuses on being here now, oneness, and this moment is all there is and moving deeper into. Let me tell you guys, there are people like that. And it depends on your vision as a person. If you idolize the past, if you feel the secret of the universe is in the past, you will find strange contentment with the archaic. Listen, Interesting, interesting. So Kaylee says, I'm going to continue what she was writing there. She says, moment is all, and this moment is all there is, and moving deeper into this moment. But now I have witnessed you and Lori Ladd on multidimensionality, and it just feels more expanded, but I'm afraid to go open up. I'm unfamiliar with who she is, but I will tell you this, dear listener, that before you listen to anyone, including this voice, why are you experiencing your eyes and not my eyes? Why is that person their eyes? Why is it do we have different DNA? What is the value? Do you think we are 8 billion different DNA on this planet and it's all meant to be the views of one DNA? No. I'm realizing that when you realize how important, when the future becomes important for you, shyness cracks. In the middle of a battlefield, you can't wonder about, oh, should I, like, if the sword is heavy for my hand. No, you roar. Do you see what I mean? So Kaylee, I would suggest that look at what's important for you and realize that nobody has your eyes other than yourself. And it is very honorable now, especially after 2020, that we share our inner realms, because nobody has our eyes, and our eyes die with us. Our eyes die with us if we don't share them. Sometimes I feel kind of pulled towards these talks because I'm like, my mind in this day has lived a life, but its life can return to the abyss, or it can exist in cyberspace eternal. You know? So I am saying that after some point, when you realize nobody has your eyes, you can't wait for anyone. That's the piloting I'm talking about. It's not being okay. So there's a school of thought that comes and says to people, oh, people, you're weak, but it's okay, accept that weakness. And then there is like another where a pilot is coming. I wrote a chapter in my science fiction novel. But anyways, this pilot comes, and this pilot says, now we need pilots. There's like this, we have to defend the skies of Earth, not just the grounds of this planet. Do you know? So that would be a situation where you would have to uptake for yourself as a creature, whatever you have been so far, to dare look at the unknown again. And to look at the unknown means the knowledge, the past gets wiped out by novelty instantly. Because it's either a novelty is in the attention or the past. So I am saying the fear never existed when you see how important how the future is calling you. There was a time where I'm like, yo, why am I looking at my past when the future is so unknown? Like the past is known, I already know it, but the future, tomorrow, is where now is going. You see, guys, I'm going to say, I feel it's nobody's place to really comment on other people's inner realms unless they would like to hear it, because the inner realms are different, okay? Think of it this way. Think of whatever we believe right now. Imagine all the people in the chat section, we all came to one conclusion of a belief. Do you know in so many years from now, we're all going to be different people? That means literally you can't be the same person when your eyes see something new. So it's kind of like the general way, or you can say the simple man's guide to universal complexity, where you just choose to wonder where it's like you pull the strings of how far your own vision has come. You trust your mind. You pilot as a mind, which is conscious and mindful. Like, let me tell you guys, Zen mindfulness, people are like, yo, these Zen monks, they're so gentle. No, these guys are badasses. Let me tell you why. Because that Zen monk in mindfulness is instead of banging the door shut because he's angry, right? That Zen monk has learned to gently close the door. So now that Zen monk in his inner realms can navigate gently. Do you see? You have to care for it or it dies. Your reality is watered by you caring for it. That means sometimes you gotta, I don't want to say risk it to get the biscuit because there's really no biscuits. It's an inconceivable multidimensional rhythm. It's like, guys, a new biscuit company opened. We're selling multidimensional biscuit. Oh man, guys, the world is such a multidimensional place, and we don't even realize it. And we have people talking about like niche markets. I was like, get out of here, bro. You talking about niche markets every day? We're exploring new niche markets. It's like, really, what can you say about the waves of an ocean? It's waving, guys. That's every economy professor ever. They're just weather commentators. I'm sorry, I can't reduce economic professors. Economics is way more complex than that when you integrate like social cultural psychology with it. But like, but you know what I mean? On some level, it's like professors in schools are just weathermen. Do you see what I mean? They're just giving you updates on how people are seeing those ideas. But really, their educational systems are not inspiring explorers. I really hope like everybody saw Game of Thrones. They saw those people on the Night's Watch. They were like, you feel like, yo man, these guys got honor, even though it makes no sense. But it's like they've got honor. And so the guy gave his life to go and stand on a wall. That's coming. Really, like Jon Snow should have been king. Like I don't understand why the writers didn't even care. Like I think the writers weren't watching. The writers weren't watching their own show. Like an audience member, I think. That means sometimes this can happen. You can't blame the writers of Game of Thrones, guys. I just realized why. Because once you're in a creative mindset, you become ignorant to how the audience sometimes might see it. Just like a dancer in the zone doesn't care anymore at that point because he has to have his attention on the dance, for example. Anyways, guys, whatever. Let me get out of this silly cloud. Really, it's at the end of the day, you realize you're allowed to exist, and that's what freedom means, really. And you're also allowed to wonder about the evolution. So if we say we're evolving creatures, if scientists are saying we're evolving creatures, that means every idea these creatures have is going to either evolve. That means either the idea evolves first, quicker than the self, or the self evolves quicker than the world. These are the two ways. That means, check this out. When I gave these talks, it was like I felt behind. Let me tell you this. It was like in every moment, there's a self and a world for the individual conscious entity. Okay? So this individual conscious entity is like, yo, I want things to evolve. How do I do this? And this conscious entity realizes that either the free will, what you're considering to be you right now, that view on you has to change, or a view on the world has to change, or you will never give yourself permission out of that lockdown of conception. That means it's okay to to have a past and observe a past, and even to project time with the past. Okay, some people project time in a way where time is an object to them. They literally put the object away from them, and they don't experience themselves in time. Those people who are embodied in time, they're also embodied in the endless journeys and generations. It's like for the Buddhic mind, the universe was like this strange engine that endlessly generated worlds and selves, and it was as if they were temporary. It was as if it's like a dance. It's like the universe is dancing, and that moment in history was like that unique dance move. And that other moment was that dance move, or even a singer singing. It's like that was that moment, that pitch. So for me, it's just you're gonna realize your mind, your DNA, and it's like it's like 8 billion different people with different DNA. Do you think really one educational system works for all of them? You think one system can have 8 billion worlds fit into it? No. This is why educational systems are going to become bunkers for the evolution and exploration of knowledge. I want you to kind of consider it like this, dear listener. Imagine the movie Independence Day, that thing, and how the world was under attack. Just any narrative where the world is under attack by like evil extraterrestrial or like an let's say not evil, let's say unknown extraterrestrial civilization, advanced species attacks Earth, or like some Independence Day kind of movie situation. So, how would you build an educational system in that moment? Imagine like we were under attack by aliens right now, our species. What kind of educational system would we build? We would create an educational system that has an incredible ability to use technology, that builds that bridge. We create an educational system that in some sense has knowledge of the enemy, and we create an educational system that in some sense is taking efforts towards resolving the situation. As if it's raining on Earth and we want to kind of either we have to wait out the storm, or we have to like in some sense, I don't know, use science to change weather conditions, with discs that are like splash into pot, like that break into powder, you know what I mean? So I'm telling you, it after a point, evolution, the excitement defines the value of the moment, the novelty, the new. That means the educational system. Imagine instead of that alien species, that's the time. Time is, we are all being conquered by time, and we have a sort of uh, allowance to exist to do something. That means it's like you exist and you're like, all right, I exist. And then you wonder, okay, why do I exist? And so many people, the archaic mind was seeking truth. The modern mind has to invent. That is the difference. It is dawn of the inventive spirit. The inventive spirit is we can playfully say, the guardian angel of ignorance. The guardian angel of the species against ignorance. The new. That means for me, let me tell you, like I remember, I've spoken to many people, and I remember speaking to someone where the person, for some reason, like if you look at people's minds and you think like language and what's happened with their life experience is how like language and meaning and reality has been programmed into their eyes. So that program would be written in like, if you were to write an autobiography of yourself, that would be literally the code that is in your mind in that moment, your journey. So I'm saying it's like when you realize it's code, you don't react to a person's personality. And this may be strange, but sometimes I look at phenomena and I don't see it like I'm looking at a tree, but I don't see it as a tree. I see it as just shape and color. And then I see presence of view. So you have to, like right now, we're lucky that the concrete jungle still exists. The concrete jungle was a countercultural movement against us living in forests. So you can say it's like we were just savages in forests, then we became savages in civilization. Not externally, but internally. So when we were savages like animals in nature, in the wilderness, in the forests, we were in some sense, the environment was coding our intelligence, was programming our intelligence. Now we became civilized a little bit, but it's not complete. That means the metamorphosis isn't complete. That means it's like, yes, we're not like killing each other externally, but internally, psychologically, there's enough savageness to cause wars in the world. So you see, there is still, it's a concrete jungle because the mind is now in a jungle. It's in a psychological jungle of various minds conducting themselves on a rock in the middle of nowhere. Like, guys, just think about it. A sphere in a vacuum. You know, imagine you're on a sphere on a vacuum and you had a watch on. What is the time? Tell me. You know, anybody who can answer this, tell me. What is the time on a sphere in a vacuum? What time is it in a sphere in a vacuum? This is the question that I think. Sorry guys, just hang on a second. I'm just typing something before it flies off. Guys, Plugaru, thanks so much, man. But just hang on a second, bro. I gotta write this down, and I'm gonna answer your questions. Um, it's the question of the day I'm writing. Uh, Guys, this is one of the most epic questions I think I've ever asked. Like my mind has fathomed. um, Plugaru, yes, I have listened to Jiddu Krishnamurti. I can tell you my views on it if you like. And I haven't watched The Promised Neverland. No, I didn't have your time, you know. I didn't have the, I didn't have time. I'll tell you this, guys. Jiddu Krishnamurti, he really came into my radar. Like I became aware of his ideology because he had this quote where he shouted on stage, "I am compassion with its own intelligence." So you see, Krishnamurti was literally kind of taking everyone to a simplistic love that is intense. So even though he didn't consider it, but he was in some sense like you can't have a dude go sit on a chair, close his eyes, get intense hits on like get intense like movements, suddenly jerks of his body, and not feel as if there is something going on there with his mind. You know? like Krishnamurti is an excellent teacher. Do you know what I mean? And Krishnamurti was aware. I would consider him an advanced communicator that was aware. He was the advanced communication of the universal sector. Sometimes this phenomena you find in the New Age community of channeling or having some sort of relationship with an interdimensional being or some sort of archetypal abstraction in the unconscious mind or whatever you want to say about it. No, so guys, when you guys, the comment, Shane, I'm saying welcome to the chat. I'm saying Krishnamurti was speaking from a timeless state of his own view on himself. He wasn't speaking to people as a creature. He wasn't speaking to people as a person when he was speaking on stage. He was speaking as the moment. Some people can do that. Just like you see how your heart feels, for example, you don't think about your heart, it happens. You can have your mind also be where certain things your mind just does, where it's natural to you. It's innate. It's like your DNA is like a unique combination of expression of skill on this earth. And you are the pilot of your attention in the space-time continuum. That means if you as a child had this vision of pilot, sorry guys, I gotta. A child is born and this kid wants to see, imagine your own childhood, but imagine this kid wants to fly like a hyperspeed spaceship. This kid would in some sense be so inspired by the potential of that vision that after some point you wonder who is moving the brush. Why am I here among all that is here? Why is the world manifest? Why have the eyes existed? So, guys, keep the questions coming. If not, if you don't have questions, you can attempt answering the question of the day. Let me tell you I'm trying to think right now, like realistically. Maybe one would ask, like, how far can we see? Wisdom says you can't see far because there's more unknown than known. Modernity says we know something, let's keep going. And in between these two tidal waves colliding with one another, human civilizations occur. An empty space, Kaylee. So a vacuum, what I mean by a vacuum is that a space where there's nothing in it. It's empty. So I'm telling you, a sphere in emptiness. What time is it on there? It's like a riddle, you know. Guys, because we can't see the edge of the vacuum, or because we can't see the edge of the universe, we know it's a vacuum. But I'm saying it appears as a vacuum. We don't. When we look in outer space, we call it space. We don't treat space as if it's an element. We don't treat space as if it's the ocean where the fish are in. I'm Mr. Within. I treat space as alive. For me, the air is alive. That means, yes, in one view, I have the periodic table kind of elemental view on oxygen, you know? Like, I respect oxygen through the periodic table, but I also, for me, it is where consciousness goes into modes, navigates. Time is, Albert Einstein says we created the concept of time, so everything doesn't happen all at once. Albert Einstein was a badass philosopher, guys. Science and philosophy were friends. In today's society, they have not been friends. You know what it is? That means the grandfather of modern philosophy, the grandfathers of modern philosophy and the grandfathers of science, they were both on the same quest, and then after some point, they separated. Their grandkids are no longer in contact. So the philosophers, they were banned. It's like secular materialism didn't just make supernatural ideology invalid. It made all ideology invalid. Where I was literally listening to Sam Harris speak about free will being an illusion, and I'm like, whoa, that's some scary thing. When a neurologist starts speaking about spirituality, then you're like, all right, so science has reached its edge, its material edge. So there's a point where it's no longer a material explanation of why the conscious activity happens. I feel we're all gravitating towards the unknown, which is an acceleration of the efficient over the inefficient. That means we're literally evolving beyond dualistic selfhood. Honestly, I'm just saying, guys, just realize you're an explorer of a life that you're in once, physically. Non-physically, who knows what the who and the no is, you know, the no. Shame, that's true, but you also said time is a creation of the mind. So is slowing down a creation of the mind, or is it time slowing down? Oh, I definitely believe in a third option. So, welcome to the chat, everyone. Corona asks, do you believe the universe is finite or infinite, or maybe even some third option? I feel the finite and the infinite are being witnessed from one moment. I feel that uh, duality is the father of it, father of infinity, but singularity, the singular dimension is the mother of duality. So what I mean by that is that there is the unknown option. And the unknown option is that it is neither, because it's a changing entropic nature. Do you see what I mean? That means change makes you kind of empty-handed all the time. When I say change, guys, I mean like, I mean like how Gandhi saw change. Shift of human activity towards the important. I feel that the universe can appear as a simulation, and that's how it would appear as finite. It appears as an infinite. It appears infinite if this universe is the only thing that's here. When I say infinite, that means it's like there's black holes in space. That means we could go explore everywhere in space, but there would still be black holes. That means that's literally the declaration that, in some sense, no human ideological system can ever define the world, because there's literally a black hole, giant black hole in space. You see what I mean? So it's a strange time, you know. Interesting. Um, um, so Kaylee, I would say this, Kaylee. I would say this, Kaylee. I would say, um, you gotta look at your tattoo, whoever you are. I mean, I listen. I don't have a tattoo. You know, I was like, you know, I have a different view on that. And it doesn't mean I like in the future. I've thought maybe I might get a tattoo. I don't know. I thought of getting the guys. This might sound hilarious, but I thought of. Katie's asking about tattoos in the chat section, and I thought about like getting it. Like if I was gonna get a tattoo, what tattoo was it? And I think it would be the literally the web address of my YouTube channel. It's like, you know. My vision is this. First of all, the best answers come from within. The outer view is just expanding your alphabet, pretty much. It's just showing you more possibilities. Really, you're the pilot. So first thing to realize is that you're the pilot of your inner realms. Nobody can see your inner realms. If you're getting a tattoo, at least get if you have to do something with the tattoo, you in some sense try to make it sentimental to your own inner realms. I think what it should be is that. Can I ask you a question, Kaylee? Is it a simple cross? Is the tattoo just lines, or is it the three-dimensional shape of a cross? Here, guys, I'll draw something. Let me see. Okay. Hang in there, folks. Alright, guys, this is a never before done event in these talks where I could never fathom, but I'm gonna draw for you guys if it's a three-dimensional. Oh, okay. That's different. Okay. So the cross it's all flat lines, right? The cross isn't like it's not round at the edges of the cross, is it, Katie? Can you answer? So when you say it's like a T, that means okay, how big is the T? It's 50% of your hand. So it's on your hand. Okay, so the cross is on your hand. That changes the game. if the cross is on your hand, it's literally on your hand. So the cross is on your hand. Listen, this is a technique in art, like certain artists use, where they use this technique to cover the weak points of their artwork. And what they do is they add a shape. So if you literally add a triangle to one of the sides of that cross, it would change the meaning of the cross. Do you understand what I mean? So I'm gonna. Sorry, guys, if I sound a bit vulgar. It's just this is an exciting idea here. I'm gonna draw something, guys, and you're gonna see what I mean. I think this is the most ingenious way. This is maybe the best thing somebody could do if, like, this is my recommendation to you. I'm drawing. It's just. Yo, people are listening in right now and they're like, what's Mr. Within doing? Guys, I'm drawing something. Like, this is gonna be Mr. Within's view of how a cross, like, this is what I would do if I had that tattoo. Guys, this is becoming too big of a project. So what I'm doing, guys, is I think the best kind of tattoo to get, like what you can with it, is not to touch per se the cross, but use that as already colored space and make the cross three-dimensional by giving it an axis. So I would give it a three-dimensional axis. So I would pretty much draw a line like this. Okay. Okay. So I got it, guys, I got it. Um, you pretty much imagine, like, if that cross was in, like, here, I'll show you. Probably there's a picture of it. Okay, there we go. Okay. Guys, this is hilarious, but I found a picture that kind of demonstrates what I wanted to draw. So I can just show it to everybody. By the way, guys, the talk is over. This is pretty much the Q&A, whoever's tuning in. So guys, here's the picture. You see this? So imagine instead of the kettle, it's the cross. I'm telling you, just get simple lines that make it appear as a three-dimensional object on a two-dimensional plane. Make your tattoo three-dimensional by not per se twerking too much around with a tattoo, and maybe get somebody to tattoo it three-dimensional spiral. I'm saying add dimensions to the two-dimensional image. That's what I'm saying. So that's my recommendation, Kaylee. Don't just have it be symbolic. Have it be a reminder of dimensions, because a tattoo is something you see. So at least have it something important. So ask yourself what is something important for you, and then what emotion that gives, and then wonder about like what it could be or something. You know? So the designer in me would say, "Yo, use this kettle as an example." Yeah, guys, I was aware you can't see. I was just drawing it to then take a picture with my phone and then email it or somehow after probably a minute. Like, guys, the what I drew though, you still can't see. What I drew is like instead of the kettle, but I drew with lines. So I looked at the corners of the cross and I drew tagged lines, and you make it seem like as if like there's a space underneath the cross and a space above the cross. All right, guys, hang on, I'm gonna draw this. I think this is the coolest thing that can happen. And then you have to like master this design, Kaylee, and fine tune it yourself. But I'm like, this is what I think is the coolest thing that can happen. Let me see. How do I draw this? You would go somewhere like this where. Oh my god, this is by far maybe the most next level thing, guys. Like, I can't wait to show this to you. I mean, I'm drawing with a pen, guys. This is like a big pen. It's not even ink. Like and the surface I'm drawing on is not even flat. So. Perfect. Perfect. Guys, this is the fourth attempt. This is going to be the master model. Let's see what's going on. Incredible, guys. Master, like version of it is complete. Now I don't have a phone. Jesus. um, Kaylee, I don't know how to message you back because I gotta email this picture. I don't know how to, like, um, I don't know how to bring the picture. I don't have my phone here actually. Oh man, how do I do this? Okay, perfect, perfect. Um, I'll email it to you. Um, okay, nice. So, anyways, guys, any more questions before I end off? Guys, I think it's clear now. You know, I think the best person to get advice for a tattoo is I'm not a video game designer, but I think video game designers are the best. Guys, something to share. I'm developing like a community, pretty much like trying to create some sort of network where I like can provide some sort of newsletter or like controlled community, and also somewhere where people can share. So you can. I'm gonna put the Patreon thing here. Uh, if you like, guys, only for those interested. This is like pretty much my community. People who join the Patreon apps on my phone. I can pretty much. I'm in contact with everyone there. I'm accessible. So, anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Kaylee, I hope you get an incredible tattoo. I'm gonna share with you my prototype. But anyways, and thanks Plugaru for your contributions towards Civilization 2.0. And yeah, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Much blessings and namaste.